Welcome back. I'm here with an incredible talent, a guy that's had a ton of success in the corporate world, whether it be as a salesperson or sales leader. He's led his own regions. This is a guy that we call the corporate bohemian, right? Okay, I love that nickname. But again, my friend Zeke, and we're gonna be spending some time today. I mean, I saw this operation, went, man, this is something we need to capture. So thank you. You're gonna be taking us on a tour today.
No, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a pleasure to get to talk to you and just share a little bit of the life that my wife and I have built here.
Yeah, so it's incredible. Like, to me, this is the dream, man. This is what you go to work for. And to see you bring it to life is just, it's been a great experience for me out here in Western Pennsylvania. So let's get started.
We kind of got started doing it just because we already had the infrastructure here. And as my wife will tell you, whenever I start to dabble in something, I kind of tend to
explode.
To go overboard with it, right? So a couple chickens turned into 22 chickens, 2 turkeys, and a duck.
Okay.
So yeah, but it's been a pretty special part of just getting to live here. You know, some of these farm fresh eggs are some of the first whole foods that my son ate outside of breast milk, right? So I always thought that was just kind of a neat concept.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, I've just kind of taken it and ran with it from there. So,
I mean, when you think about, you know, corporate America, I imagine a guy sitting at a nice restaurant eating his prepared breakfast. It's pretty neat that you get out here. And so who does it? I mean, are you collecting the eggs, your wife?
It's a combination. You know, I travel a lot of times 3-4 days out of the week. And so, you know, a lot of times, yeah, I've got to lean on her to come out and do it.
Yeah.
But it's also been a joy to just kind of start to build a little bit of responsibility into my son, who's 3 now, about to be 4.
Cool.
And so, you know, sometimes I give him the pail and I let him go ahead, you know, have him do it. You know, of course, it's more of a fun thing at this point, but I do think it starts to build a foundation of a little bit of responsibility.
Awesome.
Right? And things of that nature. So,
love it.
So yeah, we get about, I'd say, 15 or so eggs every single day.
Okay.
We don't eat 15 eggs every single day. So that's one of the cool things too, just about the small town that I live in is, you know, we have a lot of neighbors, and I have a buddy that lives down the road, and, you know, once we get a little bit overwhelmed on eggs, we just, you know, I just take a bucket, a dozen or 2 down to them, and it's just something neat that they really enjoy, that they, you know, and there's no question that farm fresh eggs taste way better, way heartier meal than what you buy in the freezer section at the grocery store.
Got a pretty good collection there.
Yeah, I'd say, 20? Probably 15 or 16.
Wow.
And it's cool. So these smaller chickens, they're called bantams.
Okay.
And they didn't lay any today, but a lot of times they lay these tiny little eggs.
Okay.
I mean, you know, there's other ones in here. They're called Easter eggers that'll lay like a more pastel colored egg.
Okay.
But then the bantams, they're the cutest little eggs. They're tiny.
Yeah.
And when you hard boil them, it's nice because you could, you know, you hard boil them, peel them, you just pop the whole thing right in your mouth, and it's great. So this is usually where we do our garden. The last couple years, we've thought about kind of moving it to different areas, but you know, this is something we really enjoy too. Just being able to grow and store our own food. You know, I grew up canning different types of, you know, green beans, growing peas, cucumbers, making pickles. Canning peppers and things of that nature. So that's something that's kind of been passed down from my family to me, and something that I didn't really want it to stop with just me. Times are fine right now. You know, we don't have any type of like food insecurity, fortunately enough, but I do just think, you know, this is a certain, you know, a certain bit of knowledge that's important to carry forward, so we're not always reliant.
Really happy that we're covering this today. It's unique. You don't think of a corporate leader, right? Like, this is blue collar work. This is getting your hands dirty, and you're getting out every day and doing it. And your wife's a city girl.
Right. Yeah. And so it has certainly been foreign to her. But you know, you bring her up, and it's something that we've been able to bond over. And you know, we come out here and we're working the garden together. We get to chat and decide on, hey, what do we want to grow this year? Hey, maybe we grew too many Brussels sprouts last year. Yeah. You know, we really don't eat that many tomatoes, right? So it's just fun kind of getting to just game plan it, right? With her. And then we come out here and we weed the garden, make sure that, you know, that it's has proper nutrients. We share in the canning process and the preservation process. So something that really brings us together. And it's something that I really like. I like to cook as well.
Okay.
And so this gives you an opportunity to try different recipes, to store things in a different way, or hey, add a little bit more garlic, a little less seasoning.
Yeah.
And you really get to explore a lot of different flavor profiles, which is enticing to me too.
Yeah, that's amazing. This show is sponsored by Soma Kombucha. Kombucha is a probiotic drink filled with healthy bacteria that works in your digestive system to support a healthy and happy and vibrant life. What sets Soma apart is that it has billions more probiotics than other brands. It is naturally carbonated and naturally sweet because of the proprietary slow fermentation process that produces fructose without spiking blood sugar, like traditional white sugar. Soma is Portland's favorite kombucha, having won Best Kombucha several times. Use code CONVERSATIONS today to support our mission at somakombucha.com. The link is in the description below. Now back to the show. So this is where you start the process for making the syrup, huh?
Yeah.
So why don't you walk me through it, start to finish?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it first starts with identifying the maple trees, right? And so I'm not great at identifying a tree just based off of the bark.
Okay.
So what I do is I come around during the summertime when there's foliage on it. I know what a maple leaf looks like, right?
Yeah.
So I cheat a little bit and I mark them with a blaze orange.
Okay.
Fortunately enough, as I've learned, most of this woods is filled with maple trees. So in order to harvest the sap, first it starts with what's going on in the time of year. This is the time of year where it kind of starts to get warmer, and what's going on is the sap and the sugars that are stored down in the roots, the tree is sending up to the distal ends of the tree and the branches to create buds, to create leaves, which then grab the sun, photosynthesis, kind of that process we all learned about in school. So what you're doing whenever you're harvesting the sap from the tree is you're siphoning off some of the sugar that's headed upward. And it starts with, there's different sizes and things of that nature, but you drill a hole in the tree at a little bit of an upward angle. And then these little things here are called spiles.
Okay.
And you tap it into the tree. You want a nice and firm set in there, nice and firm. And then the sap will start to drip out of there, one drop at a time. And then it travels into these lines. And then, there's various different ways of collection methods. This is just a 30-gallon food grade barrel that I found off of Facebook Marketplace. I found a barrel guy, he's coined himself. Okay. And he, works with just different folks that are importing. I think this had olives in it. It was an import. Okay. And, so then I just kind of fabricated it into a collection barrel. And then once it fills up, we'll either come out and switch it out, or if it's only like half full, we'll just dump it into a smaller barrel. And
so how much does it take to make a gallon of syrup?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's quite a bit. There's quite a bit of byproduct, if you will. So it's 40 gallons typically, just depending on the concentration of the sap that you collect.
Yep.
But a rule of thumb is kind of 40 gallons of sap collected from the tree should net you somewhere in the vicinity of 1 gallon of maple syrup. Okay. So it's there's quite a bit of a process, and we'll take a look at it here in a little bit, but you evaporate it. Yeah. So you put the sap into, you can put it in a pot. I mean, there's all different scales of this process. Okay. But you put it in some sort of evaporator pan or a pot on the stove or over an open fire, and you just continue to boil it down. And once it gets kind of towards the end, you filter it. Okay. And you get your finished product.
Get your Mrs. Buttersworth.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. I like it. That's awesome. Thank you.
This is the evaporator setup. So I mentioned earlier about the amount of sap that it takes to boil down into syrup. And so this is the setup that I invested in this year. Certainly an upgrade from years prior. You don't need something this elaborate whatsoever. You can do it in a saucepan on a stovetop. Okay. It's become a pretty serious hobby of ours, so we decided to take a little bit of a step up. And so this pan here, it's 4 foot by 2 foot. You can fit about 50 to 60 gallons of sap. And again, so that should net us anywhere from a gallon, a little bit over a gallon of actual syrup. Yep. We've been boiling this down for about 24 hours at this point. So what we're getting ready to do is we'll pull it off of this evaporator pan, give it a good filter, a double filter here, and then we'll put it onto the stovetop to finish it.
Okay. So Jacqueline, and I know this is a whole family adventure here, but what's your role in this?
I make sure the fire doesn't go out.
Okay.
Because he'll forget.
Okay.
Or I try to check on it while he's on, his calls for work. I just make sure the fire doesn't go out so we can just continue to boil it down and hope to get syrup within within 24, 48 hours.
She keeps the fire burning in all different facets of life. That's for sure.
Amazing. It's awesome. Yeah, it's been neat to hear about, the role that the kids play in it and kind of how everybody pitches in to bring it to life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we love that the kids get to enjoy it after they make it, and everyone else that we love. So that's our favorite part of it, sharing it.
Awesome.
So we'll open this valve up here, and like I said, it'll start to pull the syrup off, and it'll go down through this double filter into this pot, and then we'll finish it on the stove top.
Oh wow.
The sap formally turns into syrup once it reaches 219 degrees. So syrup has a boiling point of 7 degrees higher than water.
Okay.
And that, it does vary depending on sea level here and there, but again, that's rule of thumb. So after we pull the syrup off of the big evaporator pan, we put it on the stove top into a little bit more of a manageable pot, and then towards the very end of the process, this will reduce even further, and we'll put it down into what's called a finishing pan. And at the very end, what we do is we run it through a filter. So you get the syrup up to the 219 degrees.
Okay.
And at that point, most of the water has pretty much evaporated off, and you're dealing with what's considered pure maple syrup. So we filter that off, and then we put it into different types of jars and things that, just depending on how we want to store it or the quantities that we want to store it. And so we've been through quite a bit today. And this is a batch that I actually finished up at 1 a.m. last night. So I just wanted to give you a little something to walk away with for your travels.
Awesome, thank you. I really appreciate it.
So this is a deer hunting stand that I put up. It's the very first one that I put on this property, and it's a pretty special spot as far as I'm concerned. So it's always been one of my big goals and dreams to just have a piece of property to be able to go out and to hunt on, right? And
yeah.
I was fortunate enough the very first year that we bought this property to put this stand up, and I was actually able to harvest the deer just right over there. And of course, a lot of times with deer hunting, you're looking at more mature bucks. And the reason why you're doing that is because those mature bucks have had an opportunity to pass on their genetics.
Okay.
And a lot of times what they'll do is they're chasing away some of the younger deer and things of that nature, and they get in the way of those deer being able to breed. And eventually it gets to the point where they've just got to go.
Yep.
And so this was the spot where I got to kill a pretty mature deer, and it was one of the nicer deers as far as antlers are concerned, which a lot of people measure, this many points or this many inches.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm more of a meat hunter is what they call me. I don't obsess over the size of the antler or the number of inches or the score. There's a scoring methodology that goes in it, the Boone and Crockett scoring system. So yeah, this spot's pretty special. Always hold a special spot in my heart. Being able to come out here and be successful on a hunt on my very own piece of land.
Oftentimes I think there's this stereotype around hunters in general, right? And when I think about this conversation, the one thing that stands out is something that my grandfather really shared with me, and that's when it comes to hunting, it's having respect for the land, right? Having respect for the animals and being ethical. Who instilled that in you?
So I was fortunate enough to have a grandfather and a father that played a crucial role in that, right? And so if I wanted to get out and go hunting every single year, there's a regulation book that comes out each year. And it was my responsibility before I stepped foot in the woods to read that thing cover to cover and understand what changes there were in the rules and the regulations and things of that nature. And so I agree, there is oftentimes a stereotype that, hunters, we go out and we kill animals, right? So that fair enough, right? It maybe it portrays a lack of care for the animal, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. Realistically, the goal is to have a good, clean shot and put the animal down with a good, clean, ethical shot that they die instantly. Yeah, it's not and as hunters, we've all seen. We've all watched an animal expire in the woods, and that's no one's favorite part of it. I mean,
I heard you talking about like that impacting you, having that happen impacted you for many, many months, right? And that's just, I mean, to me, that was the coolest part about this whole experience was, again, kind of hearing how much you care. And so is that something that you're very intentional about passing on to your kids?
Yeah,
or you plan to be?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's intentionality that goes into that shot. And yeah, what you're referencing is, I you know, we've all done it. We wounded an animal and not been able to recover that animal. And it's not something that just goes away overnight. It's something that just sticks in your mind. What could I have done differently? You know, and by all means, there's a lot of effort that goes into making that shot.
Yeah.
And a lot of thought and intentionality that goes into making that shot. And so whenever it works out of your favor, there's obviously compassion for the animal. There is, you know, there's a lot of different things that go into it. Fair share. So do I go out and pursue another animal, or was that my fair share?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's quite a dichotomy that exists.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, certainly it's something that I plan on to pass on to my son and hopefully my daughter too. I think she'll be pretty interested as well. So this buck here is I took you back to the tree stand that I put up on the property, and this is the deer I was able to harvest the very first year that we moved here. So this deer, it's not the world's biggest buck, but at the time it was the nicest deer that I had ever harvested, and definitely means a lot to me. It was just an overwhelming rush of emotions after kind of calming down from all the adrenaline and really getting the process like, wow, like this was a huge goal of mine that I'd always had.
Yeah.
To own a piece of property and to be able to harvest an animal off it was just something I'll never forget. So
that's incredible. And I noticed you had some pictures as well. Tell me about these pictures.
Yeah, so these just kind of speak to the tradition, right? And the memories that you get to make. So this was actually the same year or the following year that my wife was able to harvest a deer right behind my dad's house, actually. And that was just really special. Jacqueline was 8 months pregnant in this photo.
Okay.
And she went to the stand, the deepest in the woods that me, my dad, no one wanted her to be in because she was pregnant with my son at the time.
Wow.
And it was just an incredible journey.
What a cool memory to do that pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
She trekked her way back into the woods and made it happen. And it was just, she made an incredible shot on it, over 120 yards, I think it was. And this was 2 years ago at this point, where my dad and I were able to harvest deer on the same day. And so it was really neat where I was hunting in my stand and he had got this buck on the ground. I went up, helped him drag it out, and then went back into my stand, and he was on the way to take it in whenever this guy had walked by. And I was able to make a good clean shot on it and went down, died immediately. And it was just a really special memory for me and him to be able to get our best bucks, right, on the same day, you know, within a couple miles of one another. And my wife obviously did a great job of capturing that moment, which I'm grateful for. But certainly a day I'll never forget, getting to share that experience with my dad.
This is amazing, right? You think about the chickens that we saw, the syrup that you're making, the practicing that goes into your shooting, the land that you're living off of, whether it be the garden or the deer. This is a pretty magical place, and I just want to say congratulations on putting this together. I know how hard you've worked, and just to see it come to life, I'm really excited for you.
Yeah, thanks, Skyler. I appreciate it. Something that we don't take for granted, and my wife and myself are very grateful for, and we appreciate it. And yeah, I appreciate the sentiment. It hasn't happened overnight. It's been a piece by piece, layer by layer, long nights, early mornings, and it's something that we appreciate the opportunity to share with others. In fact, that's a big driver in what we do. It's not just for us. I love having people out. I love sharing the harvest, whether it's venison, whether it's out of the garden, whether it's maple syrup and different products that we're able to harvest. So that's a huge piece of it.